In 2025, aliens invade Earth and enclose cities with 300-meter-high walls, restricting human movement. Truck driver Will says goodbye to his wife, Katie, and their children, Grayson and Bram, before heading to work in Los Angeles, where soldiers in red helmets patrol the streets. Later, while talking to a co-worker, it becomes clear that Will is secretly planning an illegal escape beyond the wall. He meets a smuggler who hides him inside a metal container covered with ice. That's when Will realizes he has an unexpected companion. He admits he's searching for his 12-year-old son, trapped on the other side. As the truck nears the gates, an explosion suddenly overturns it. Stunned, Will crawls out but is immediately captured by red-helmeted soldiers. That same morning, Katie meets an underground dealer for black market insulin. The invaders limit medicine supplies to weed out the weak, making it nearly impossible to find. She offers alcohol in trade but discovers the insulin is spoiled. Armed with a pistol, she fights her way out, risking drone surveillance and death. She can't afford to be robbed. Meanwhile, Will is locked up, unable to contact Katie. With nighttime travel banned, Katie grows anxious. Her sister Maddie arrives with her sick son. Katie promises to find insulin and asks her to stay with the kids. She then seeks Will's colleague, who denies knowing anything, forcing her to return home empty-handed. Suddenly, citywide alarms blare. Katie hides under a military truck as a drone hovers nearby, while soldiers force a prisoner inside. Just as it seems she's trapped, the truck moves and the drone leaves. At sunrise, she safely makes it home. The next morning, Katie visits her friend Broussard and tells him about Will's disappearance. Like her husband, he was an FBI agent before the invasion. He advises her to go home while he contacts his sources. Instead, Katie sneaks into a hospital and learns about the explosion at the city entrance. Amidst the chaos, she steals several vials of insulin. Meanwhile, in prison, Will listens as cellmates reveal their fate, soon to be sent to work for the aliens. Soldiers arrive, and one calls out Will's real last name. Will is taken to the Green Zone, now occupied by the world's surviving leaders. There he meets Snyder, a high-ranking official under Los Angeles governor. Snyder knows Will's FBI and military history, as well as his skill in tracking criminals. With law enforcement dismantled, Will had been in hiding until now. Snyder presents an ultimatum: infiltrate the resistance and capture their leader, Geronimo, in exchange for his family's safety. As an alien spacecraft prepares to launch, Snyder leads Will to a balcony, trying to sway him. If he refuses, his family will be sent to the factory. Late at night, red-helmeted soldiers escort Will home, leaving his family shaken. He quickly reassures them, claiming he was in an accident, but Katie senses he's lying. When he admits he was searching for Charlie, she breaks down in tears. Her sorrow soon turns to anger upon hearing Snyder's offer. She refuses to be the wife of a traitor. By morning, the family wakes to the scent of bacon. Entering the kitchen, they are shocked to see Snyder preparing breakfast, complete with fresh coffee, a rare luxury. As he eats, he details their new privileges: security, a tutor for the kids, high-quality food and jobs. The aliens are even allowing them to reopen their old bar. Will, however, agrees to cooperate only if Charlie, currently in another block, is returned. Snyder promises to consider it. The next day, Katie arrives at a hidden safe house where resistance members await. She informs them that the occupiers have recruited her husband to hunt them down. Will reports for duty, only to realize Snyder deceived him. Instead of leading a special unit, he is placed under Phyllis's command and assigned to investigate the bombing at the city entrance. His new partner, Bo, is a seasoned officer. Meanwhile, Katie visits their bar and stumbles upon their missing son's belongings. As she starts cleaning, Broussard arrives, demanding intel about the explosion at customs. However, Will has just started his job and has no answers yet. At the same time, Will and Bo track down the suspected bomber's girlfriend, tricking him into fleeing through the back door. As they chase him, a drone suddenly appears. Will boldly stares into its lens, and to his surprise, it vanishes. The suspect is taken to the station, where Will encounters a fellow officer under arrest. Desperate, the man begs Phyllis to release him, claiming to be her informant, but she coldly refuses. Later, Will returns to his trailer, only to find his family gone. Meanwhile, Katie hides a woman and her child in their home before rushing to Broussard for forged documents. He refuses, unwilling to jeopardize the resistance. Back home, Katie and Will argue. Upon learning about the woman and child, Will takes them to a forger. On their way, they are stopped by red-helmeted soldiers. After checking Will's pass, They apologize and let him through, leaving Katie stunned. They safely reach the forger, and as he prepares the documents, Will tells Katie he has caught the bomber. He believes that finding Geronimo is the key to getting Charlie back. Later, Will escorts the woman and child to a displacement camp. Meanwhile, Katie meets resistance leader Alexander, who assures her that the captured boy belongs to another group, but promises to warn them. At the station, Will discovers that a group of prisoners is being prepared for transport to the factory. Phyllis advises him to accept the inevitable. When the city's entire defense collapsed in hours, what could a few rebels accomplish at night? Katie comforts him, but when Will learns the suspect has revealed an accomplice's hideout, he immediately leaves. As soon as he's gone, Katie secretly calls Broussard to warn him. Meanwhile, the prisoners are taken to their destination, where they are stripped, disinfected, and redressed. At the same time, red-helmeted soldiers raid the location named by the detainee, only to find the bodies of slain rebels. Will realizes there must be a spy within the police. The next morning, a man pushing a cart enters a hidden house on the outskirts of Los Angeles. Moments later, a radio broadcast begins, urging people to resist the occupation. Geronimo's voice fills the airwaves. The red helmets detect the transmission and rush to the location. Meanwhile, Bram secretly duplicates the recording and hides the cassette under his bed. Soldiers raid the house but find no one inside. That same day, Katie joins the resistance in an attack on a food truck. During the mission, their comrade Kim is critically wounded. Katie tries to help him, but to her horror, Broussard executes him. Before she can react, drones arrive and begin firing at random civilians. Broussard, having calculated the authorities' response time, leads the resistance to safety. Shaken, Katie rushes home and scrubs away the blood. Overwhelmed, she locks herself in her room, unable to talk. At school, Bram gives a cassette to his teacher, who mentions noticing an unusual shift in the alien ship's takeoffs. A massive object has been circling Earth, and she plans to build a stronger telescope to observe it. The police arrive at the scene of the earlier attack, where Will sees the body of a young boy who was clearly executed. Phyllis orders a photograph taken and quickly identifies him. Soon after, red-helmeted soldiers raid his home and arrest his parents. Will, disgusted, fails to notice Broussard slipping away into the crowd. Broussard reports back to the resistance, but Alexander is confident Kim left no evidence behind. Will returns home to find Katie distant. She claims her sorrow is due to finding their son's belongings at the bar. Heartbroken, Will blames himself for being powerless against the invaders, but Katie promises her support. Katie meets with Broussard, who justifies killing Kim by saying it saved him from torture. However, she now has a new task: extract everything Will has learned from his investigation. Meanwhile, Bram's friend seeks his help and takes him to a hidden underground tunnel beneath the wall where her brother has injured his leg. She reveals that their father worked there before the occupation, and now they use it to cross beyond the wall. Bram learns they've been doing this for months, gathering food, as there's no one on the other side. Will and Bo investigate a cultural center that Kim had visited before his death. There they discover a hidden rebel weapons cache. Alexander, upon learning about the missing weapons, instructs Broussard to warn Katie that her husband's involvement is dangerous. Broussard delivers the message, but Katie is more concerned about her family's safety. That evening, she reopens their bar. The celebration is in full swing when Snyder arrives unexpectedly, congratulating them on the reopening. He explains to Will that places like this allow people to release their frustrations in a controlled environment. Katie, furious, believes they've sold out to the occupiers just to get their son back. Will, however, insists that working for Snyder is his best chance to find Charlie. Later, Will discusses the possibility of a spy with Bo, but Bo, having experienced betrayal before, refuses to believe it. Meanwhile, Katie tells Broussard that the authorities' rapid discovery of resistance hideouts is due to a massive database controlled by a skilled analyst. She offers to reveal the woman's identity on the condition that Will remains unharmed. Broussard swears to honor the deal. The next day, a squad of red-helmeted soldiers storms the school, violently arresting a teacher and assaulting a student. Later, one of the soldiers removes his helmet. It's Broussard. Back at the resistance base, he explains to Alexander that he has uncovered the Red Helmet's duty schedule, giving them an advantage in future missions. That same day, Phyllis shows Will detailed intelligence on the Los Angeles resistance, warning him that if they unite and launch an offensive, the entire block will be wiped out. She expects Will to grasp the implications for his family and remain loyal. Meanwhile, Katie takes the children for a walk with Lindsay, the government-appointed supervisor. Subtly, she activates a streetlight, a prearranged signal. Moments later, the sound of breaking glass rings out. Lindsay counts to 10 before pulling out a fire extinguisher, only calling emergency services after the fire's out. The red helmets, along with Will, arrive at the scene, where he is shocked to find his home being searched. Though outraged, he is informed that it is protocol. Katie is summoned to Phyllis for questioning, where she is promised enhanced security for her family. Additionally, their neighbors are warned that they will be held accountable if anything happens to them. Katie is shaken, realizing they will now be feared. Phyllis interrogates her, delving into personal details, including her marriage. Meanwhile, Maddie seeks work at the Commission for the Preservation of Cultural and Artistic Items, introducing herself to Charlotte, the director, in hopes of becoming her assistant. After Katie's interrogation, Will angrily confronts Phyllis, but she counters by revealing tapes found under Bram's bed, advising him to monitor his son closely. For now, she holds on to the evidence. Furious, Will returns home, where Bram eventually shows him resistance posters, explaining their appearance signals a new Geronimo broadcast. Katie secures a promise from Alexander that will remain unharmed in exchange for identifying his superior. She points to Phyllis in a photograph. Later, another Geronimo broadcast airs. Authorities quickly trace the signal to a library and rush in. The speaker, realizing he is cornered, delivers his final words, calling for resistance before his arrest. Will insists this man is not Geronimo, frustrating Snyder, who had assured the masters of their victory. That same day, Maddie witnesses Charlotte's frustration over a missing painting by a specific artist. Seizing the opportunity, she offers her expertise, explaining she knows who own valuable collections in the city. Meanwhile, during interrogation, the captured man confesses he found the broadcast script in a pipe. The police investigate and confirm the pipe leads to the green zone. Charlotte's team locates valuable artwork in the house Maddie identified. Grateful, Charlotte offers her a position and promises to help with insulin. Later, Phyllis informs Will that she has destroyed the tapes as a sign of trust. That evening, Bram admits he listened to Geronimo because he was the only one offering hope. Katie arrives at the bar earlier than usual and finds Phyllis waiting. Alone, Phyllis compares Will to her late husband, saying he loves Katie too much to see who she really is. She then presents surveillance photos from the truck attack, warning that Katie has allied with the wrong people. If she wants to survive, she must now work for Phyllis. That night, Phyllis returns home and greets her paralyzed husband. Entering the living room, she finds Broussard waiting. Realizing why he's there, she calmly asks him to kill her husband too. Broussard shoots without hesitation. The next day, Will and Beau investigate the crime scene and find Geronimo scrawled on the wall. Snyder is furious, as Phyllis was close to the masters, and he demands the criminals be found. Soon, a report arrives about the capture of a supposed Geronimo operative. Will interrogates the young man, who provides an address in the green zone. The red helmets raid the location, uncovering a hidden room filled with people claiming to be the Geronimo group. Meanwhile, Bram and his girlfriend sneak under the wall into an abandoned city, discovering a massive warehouse stocked with supplies. Back in Los Angeles, the news reports the underground resistance has been eliminated. However, Will remains skeptical, suspecting the truth is being manipulated. Meanwhile, Snyder grows increasingly frustrated, realizing the captured couple does not resemble the terrorists he expected. Snyder refuses to honor his promise to search for Charlie, and instead appoints Will as the head of the task force. Will immediately starts hunting for the mole, while Phyllis's assistant, Jennifer, subtly suggests that Katie might be the leak. Returning home, Will sees Bram giving his sister markers from beyond the wall. When questioned, Bram lies, claiming he traded them for oranges. Meanwhile, Snyder interrogates the man claiming to be Geronimo, who confesses that he is just an actor. Snyder persuades him to continue playing the role in exchange for a transfer to another block. At the same time, Bram promises his teacher a powerful lens for his telescope. Unbeknownst to Katie, Will secretly searches the bar but finds nothing suspicious except for an unfamiliar book. The trial of Geronimo is broadcast citywide, featuring testimonies from victims' families. A scaffold is set up in the square for the execution. The actor, still believing Snyder's promises to eliminate terrorism, plays his part but realizes the deception too late as he faces his execution. He is powerless to resist. Immediately after, Snyder invites Will to accompany him, promising to reveal something significant. Meanwhile, Alexander's group, including Katie, prepares for another attack. As they drive, Will confronts Snyder, accusing him of achieving nothing with the execution. Snyder defends his actions, arguing that pacifying the population buys time to find the real Geronimo. As Snyder's convoy moves through the city, heavily guarded by red helmets, including Broussard, they are diverted by a disguised road worker. When the convoy slows, Broussard opens fire on his own men. Snyder attempts to flee, but Will locks the car doors. Rebels disguised as red helmets surround the vehicle, managing to pry the door open. Will fires from inside, shielding Snyder and pulling him from the ambush. Drones appear, forcing the rebels to retreat. Will takes Snyder to the bar, where Katie arrives moments later. Snyder, in a panic, demands protection, but Will knows he cannot provide it alone. In private, Katie urges Will not to risk himself for someone so unworthy, but Will refuses to abandon a defenseless man. Discovering the phone lines are dead, he steps outside to use a payphone to call for backup. Meanwhile, Alexander, enraged upon learning of Will's role in saving Snyder, receives an unexpected message from Katie over the radio. She reveals that the traitor is inside the bar. Returning to Snyder, she skillfully keeps him talking, lowering his guard as she prepares for what comes next. Snyder boasts about his role as an economics professor, which earned him a high position. He reveals that there are 7 more colonies, but admits he has no knowledge of what lies beyond them. Will returns, announcing that he successfully called for reinforcements. As Katie bandages his wound, he confesses that Geronimo is not a single person, but a collective identity. She urges him not to interfere with Snyder's execution, but Will warns that another will simply take his place. Snyder suddenly claims that his people have found their son, Charlie, and that he is negotiating his return. A knock on the door interrupts them. Quickly, they hide Snyder in the bathroom as Broussard, disguised as a red helmet, enters and searches the premises. Katie leads him to the basement, asking him to ensure Will's safety, but he refuses, saying her husband is always diving into danger. After he leaves, Will is convinced Broussard is with the resistance and will return with reinforcements. They barricade the doors while Snyder once again uses Charlie as leverage, infuriating Katie, who is tired of his manipulation. The rebels soon attempt to break in, but fail. Panicked, Snyder tells Will that the Masters have tested nearly every person, filtering out those they don't need, though he himself has never seen the aliens. As the attack intensifies, Will orders Katie to hide and prepares to defend Snyder. A smoke grenade is thrown inside and the militants storm the bar. Will fires at them, but when one rebel finds him, Katie shoots the intruder. Broussard, however, aims his weapon at her, forcing her to drop hers. The rebels herd them into the basement before leaving. Will later finds a machine gun and rushes upstairs, only to discover that everyone is gone. Soon after, real red helmets arrive and pull Snyder from his hiding spot. That evening, Will reassures Katie that Snyder's tribunal was merely a performance. He insists there is no true people's hero and that those who attacked them are not connected to Geronimo. Meanwhile, Alexander concludes that Katie is a double agent leading them on. Maddie, meanwhile, starts a relationship with Nolan, Charlotte's husband and leader of the New Age Preacher Church. Will soon identifies Broussard in a photo and is ordered to find and arrest him. The red helmets storm his address, but the house explodes. Investigating Broussard's squad, Will learns that one member had a distinctive chest tattoo, marking him as Special Forces. Broussard then infiltrates a restricted area, stealing the body of a dark-skinned man of similar build. Along with Alexander, he places the body in a car and burns it, convincing their leader of Katie's betrayal. Later, the police find the charred remains matching the bar attacker, but Will remains skeptical. Katie tries reaching out to the underground but struggles to make contact. Eventually, she finds an encrypted message with a meeting place. She arrives to see a waiting car. Broussard is at the wheel. Jennifer searches the database and finds multiple records of Broussard's face. Will realizes Broussard isn't just a soldier. He's a former FBI agent. Meanwhile, Carter takes Katie outside the city and questions her, reminding her that she shot one of their own. She insists her only condition was that her family remains untouchable and that she has served the cause faithfully. Carter doubts her loyalty, and Katie walks away, refusing to continue the conversation. Broussard visits fellow resistance member Rachel and confesses that Alexander ordered him to eliminate Katie, but admits he couldn't go through with it. Meanwhile, Will meets Snyder in the Green Zone, reporting that Broussard is far more than just a militant, he's highly skilled. Will assures Snyder he will track him down. In response, Snyder hands him an envelope with a recent photograph of Charlie. Will takes the photo to Katie, who tearfully begs him to free them from Snyder's control. He promises to do so when the time is right. Meanwhile, Charlotte discovers Maddie's affair with Nolan and threatens to fire her. To assert his authority, Nolan offers Maddie a position as his assistant. The police receive new intelligence, prompting Will to return home. He shows Katie a photograph of Broussard and reveals that his fingerprints were found in their bar, proving he had been there before. Katie denies knowing him, but when Will presents photos of Broussard's victims, she recalls that he had visited them. She vaguely remembers him mentioning he was fixing up his mother's house. Jennifer quickly tracks down Broussard's mother's house using receipts from construction stores. Meanwhile, Rachel warns Katie that Broussard has indeed killed many, but only in service of the resistance. Katie, shaken, reminds Rachel that she was nearly one of his victims. Rachel counters that Broussard refused to carry out the order. Katie calls Broussard, warning him that Will has figured him out. Soon after, red helmets raid Broussard's mother's house, but it's already empty. The scattered tools suggest he left in a hurry. Will questions a neighbor, Alexander, who claims he hasn't seen anything. As Will turns to leave, he notices a familiar book on Broussard's table, identical to the one in Katie's bar. Elsewhere, Will's partner investigates a factory where workers frequently fall ill or die. He uncovers a shocking truth: the factories are built on the moon. Later, Will shows his children Charlie's photograph, admitting he only started working for the government to bring him home. That morning, the governor of the Los Angeles bloc warns Snyder that the Pacific region's chief minister is coming for an inspection. Though Snyder assures her everything is under control, she remains skeptical. Katie visits Rachel and is shocked to learn Rachel's underage son is also part of the resistance. Inspired but fearful for her family, she announces her departure from the group. Rachel promises her support. Alexander calls Will, revealing that his wife is the mole leaking information to the rebels. He sets up a meeting, and Will heads there. Will immediately recognizes Broussard's neighbor, who confesses to being the head of the resistance cell. Desperate to escape the bloc, he offers to betray everyone in exchange for safe passage. Meanwhile, Broussard meets with the leader of the youth resistance, who shares intelligence about the arrival of an important figure. Will reports his findings to Beau before heading to Snyder, relaying Alexander's demands. Snyder insists on a face-to-face meeting. That evening, Katie presses Snyder about Charlie. If he knows his location, why hasn't he brought him back? The discussion shifts to Alexander, who reveals he is ready to betray his entire cell. Alarmed, Katie rushes to the bar, discreetly signaling Broussard along the way. Elsewhere, Bram and his teacher observe the moon and notice significant surface changes, suspecting it houses alien mines and storage facilities. That night, Broussard arrives at the bar, where Katie informs him of Alexander's betrayal. He immediately confronts Alexander, who demands he cut ties with Katie and focus on an upcoming mission. The next day, Will takes Snyder to meet Alexander, who admits he only wants to survive. In exchange for a universal travel pass, he provides a list of Broussard's group and reveals their plan to assassinate the minister. He sets up a meeting where the police will capture Broussard. Once the mission is complete, Will is to escort Alexander beyond the wall and hand him the pass. Later, at the designated market location, Rachel and Katie spot red helmets approaching. Katie quickly warns Broussard, and a rebel ignites firecrackers, creating chaos. The military opens fire, killing Rachel, while Broussard manages to escape. Will heads to Alexander's house, now under police watch, and calls off the deal with Snyder. He offers Alexander a chance to flee, but Snyder manipulates him, claiming Katie has sealed his fate. Enraged, Will kills the traitor, framing Broussard for the murder. That night, Rachel's family is found hanged, sending shockwaves through the resistance. Katie pledges her unwavering support to Broussard. Meanwhile, Will confronts his wife, revealing he knows about her involvement with the rebels. The following night, a spontaneous uprising erupts, resulting in multiple red helmet casualties. Beau declares that the people's patience has run out. Will informs Snyder about a new rebel cell operating beyond the wall, suggesting the existence of a hidden passage. Snyder approves an expedition, but assigns them a guard. Meanwhile, Broussard and Katie meet the youth resistance leader, who proposes attacking the minister in the subway, now exclusively used by the masters. Beyond the wall, Will and Beau climb a skyscraper to survey the city. They stage an attack on themselves, distracting their guard, while their commander discovers a map supposedly lost by the attackers. Will identifies key attack points on the map, prompting Snyder to report the discovery of a tunnel beneath the wall. Meanwhile, the youth resistance introduces Katie to a micro-drone shaped like a bee, capable of gathering intelligence undetected. As the rebels finalize their attack plan, Broussard trains Katie in shooting. That evening, Red Helmets led by Snyder raid Nolan's house, accusing Charlotte of hoarding valuable artwork meant for the Masters. She is arrested. Later, Katie finds the benefit of the arrival, a book given to her daughter by Lindsay, and realizes the new church is brainwashing children. She calls Will, who insists they must move to Beau's house beyond the wall. But Katie, exhausted by their constant lies, refuses. Their deception is destroying their family, and she no longer believes hiding is an option. Will tells Beau to escape alone, while Katie and Broussard eliminate guards and infiltrate the subway. They open a backup entrance, allowing the rebels inside. A planned explosion derails a train, and among the wreckage, they find an alien's body. Will learns of the discovery and rushes to the station, where the governor arrives, warning of dire consequences. A similar incident, in which 2 aliens died, led to the destruction of Dallas. If the missing master isn't recovered, Los Angeles will suffer the same fate. The rebels transport the alien to a secure location, blocking signals with metallic foil. Will, fearing the worst, rushes home and urges Maddie to hide the children. She suggests taking them to the green zone. Unable to locate Katie, Will receives a secret number from Bram, which his mother had received the previous day. As the rebels attempt to relocate the alien, an unexpected daytime curfew is enforced. Maddie and the children are caught in a massive queue, and Bram seizes the opportunity to escape. The rebels hijack a Red Helmet's vehicle, loading the alien inside. The police review subway footage and identify Katie, but Will does not expose her. Bram seeks out his teacher and leads him to the tunnel. Meanwhile, the rebels, disguised in a police vehicle, witness brutal house raids meant to intimidate the public. Snyder is removed from his position, but the governor refuses to intervene. The alien is taken to a secure laboratory where the rebels attempt to break into its suit. Meanwhile, Will hands Jennifer the rebels' codebook. Together, they analyze footage from Broussard's failed arrest and identify the youth cell leader from their database. The rebels activate the communicator on the alien's wrist. Just then, Will arrives at their hideout, warning them to surrender the captive and flee before it's too late. Katie refuses and instead breaks the isolation, forcing the rebels to escape through a secret passage. As drones descend upon the house, she finally opens the door. Will calls the police, and the alien is taken away. Snyder, grateful, gives Will a universal pass beyond the wall. Meanwhile, Bram and his teacher are captured in the tunnel. Snyder is taken into custody, and Will leaves to find his son. Katie returns to an empty home, concluding the first season.